My daughter's 30th birthday is coming up soon, and I'm starting to make decorations for the party, and her birth date year was 1988. So I think I'm going to put a texture on here, and I'm going to use one of my favorite textures, which is Permanent Patch 102. If you look at the photo that I'm showing, I used this texture in my rock wall painting. I was really happy with how it turned out, and when I was finished, I added a coat of varnish, and I think I'll do that with these as well because it'll just help them really stand out. And I've decided that I want it to look kind of natural. She really loves peonies, so I think I'm going to go with the colors that you see in these various flowers here. These are peonies, kind of peachy pink, so it's not a real deep pink. These roses are kind of the same color scheme, so I left these out here because I like the green color and I like the colors of the flowers. This one is a little more to the cream. That's very pretty as well. Now I have already added gesso, and you need to add gesso or some type of primer before you start painting, otherwise all of your paint will just sink right into the cardboard. And for that I use Liquitex Basics. I poured the gesso into here, and then I could just dip my brush and go ahead and paint it. So my next step now will be to add the permanent patch, and that is Permanent Patch 102. This is like the Permanent Patch 101 that I use in a lot of my paintings, but the difference is it has this little bit of texture to it, which is kind of like as if they added a little bit of sand. To put this on, I'm just using my spatula. If you would like to see a bit more film of using this, I highly recommend watching my rock wall painting. That was really a fun painting to do, and I learned a lot about using texture. I just think a painting or anything you're working on is so much more interesting when you add texture. And I wanted these to kind of stand out and be a little bit different. So I will go ahead and finish putting this on, and you don't have to get every square inch. That's another reason why it was a good thing to add gesso, because I'm not going to have this absolutely everywhere, and I don't have to. This is just to add texture for interest. Okay, so I'm going to be starting with my warm gray and Titan buff, and I'm going to be putting down a base coat of that. And then I will start throwing in some other colors, and I'm just using a large brush. Kind of helps me not really worry about getting everything on there too perfectly. This is almost dry. I mean, if I scraped it, I could probably knock off a little bit of it, so I need to be a little bit careful. I just don't have quite enough patience to let it totally dry. It's working fine though. I think when you can have a color a little bit variegated, it adds a little bit of interest. So that's the face of it, and I will let that one dry before I do any more because I have to have some place to hold on to it. And I will do that with each of my numbers, and I'll get all through the insides and the back. I'll do all sides, including across the bottom, and then I'll come back and start adding my colors. Now I have finished all sides of each number, including the bottom, and they're almost dry, not quite dry, and I decided to go ahead with it now because if the colors run together a little bit, that's perfectly fine. And to do this part, I'm using a brush that's a little bit larger than what you would do for really tiny detail. But I'm starting out now with a little green. This is a deep turquoise, and this is phthalo green, and this is green gold with maybe a little white thrown in. And I'm just going to grab one of the numbers. I don't think I'll paint on the back side. I'll just keep it to the front. And I'm putting down some color, a little bit of phthalo, because I want to have sort of a kind of a springy, pretty look to it. Just kind of trying to keep it sort of random as far as where I'm putting it. I kind of like that darker color there. A little bit darker blue in there. So I'm just kind of trying to move quickly so I don't try to get too detailed or anything. The point isn't to have detail on here. It's just to have some random flowers and a little bit different color tones. So I just pick up a little of one color and a little of another like I normally do. I think that darker color is kind of nice. Usually when I'm doing this type of thing, I just work at things for a while, and I'm attacking this without any definite plan in mind. And if I don't like something, then I'll just come back later and change it. Of course, when I add my flowers, that'll change a lot here too. So at this point, I'm just experimenting with color. And if I decide I like a certain color pattern more than another, I may come back and use more of it. And I can always even go over some of my other parts that I've already done. So I don't want it to suddenly just end at the edges. I think it works better to have it wrap around a little bit. This can do the same. It's just a little more interesting. Okay, so now I'm ready to start adding my flowers. And I know it doesn't look like much right now because it's just little blobs of green here and there. And what I want to make sure I don't end up with is a perfect little flower scattered around the surface, because then it'll look like I just placed little flowers there, and I don't really want that. So I'll probably have maybe a large flower coming in through here, maybe even one down here, just kind of scatter them around, and I'll see what that looks like. I'll have to play around with it a little bit. Okay, now I'm ready to paint the flowers, and to do that I'm using the filbert brush. I like it because it has a little bit of a curved tip to it, and everything is just about dry. It's a little bit tacky to the touch, but it's fine for working with. And the colors that I'm using are processed magenta, cadmium red light, vermilion, and Grumbacher red. I also have a little bit of this raw sienna, and I'm going to experiment with those colors. And one thing that I should mention also is the permanent patch wall compounds that I use. They clean up with water, but I highly recommend cleaning up any kind of palette knives or anything else that you use as soon as you're finished with these compounds. They will come off later too. They'll clean up well even the next day, but it's less work if you wipe them down as soon as you're finished. So I also have some titanium white, and I started out with some clean white. And at this point, I'm just going to experiment with color again. I have a little bit of pink here, and I'll throw in a little orange because I want it to be kind of this coral color. And if I just start kind of laying it down, I'll probably have to go back and add a little hint of maybe a little hint of detail later. I think in looking at it, the number 1 I like pretty well the way that it is. I kind of like these little bit of yellow back in there. This I will fix the color. These need a little something, and I think what I may do is add a little bit of vines in here with just another little color. It might be yellow. This bothers me a little bit up here because it's a little different color. It started out with a real pretty peach, but then I ended up not really having that anyplace else. So I can fix that by bringing in a bit more orange in some other areas. I think I may do that. Yeah, it's coming together a little better now. I think I need still something over here, like another flower right here coming out. It's just a matter of playing around with things until you're happy with the composition. Maybe a little bit more orange up in here. And that adds a little dimension to those flowers too, besides balancing the color. It adds a little dimension. There we go. Now I'm going to let that dry, and then I will come back and add any little highlights of maybe like this area here is kind of pretty. It's like little white flowers. I need to do some more with the greenery. And that's about it. I don't want to do too much. Okay, now I've had a little bit more time to look at these, and there are a couple of things bothering me. I think this needs to be a little bit larger, this flower right here. I don't want the green to be balanced exactly with the flowers the way that they are right now. They need to just be background. So I think to fix that, I will work on a couple of flowers. I'm going to make this one larger, take up more of this space, and I'm going to bring this up a bit as well. And then other than adding a little bit of white over here, I'm pretty happy with this one. I just need to add a little more detail. And I think this one I'm happy with, so I'll leave it alone. And I'll see what I can do with the ones that are bothering me a bit. Need a little bit more of the orange, which is the vermilion. Vermilion can be a little bit thin, and that's why it works well mixed with white. If I get a little bit of pink in there with it, that's okay. But this is just kind of bothering me still. I think I need this to be something that takes up a little more of the space. Maybe even like that. Kind of blocks out a little bit of that green that was up there. I felt was a bit too much. And the same with these. These are a little bit too balanced. So maybe this could even be all one. Like that. That maybe just is a little bit better. Gives a little definition. Yeah, it's not quite so perfectly balanced in things now. I like that better, and this still has a little bit more pink in it than I'm happy with. So again, it's just a matter of playing around with things until you feel like something is right. Okay, this one here, I had wanted to add a little something to it. I'm gonna make it a little larger. There we go. Just that little bit extra there, just kind of makes it a little more interesting and gives a bit of definition, a little bit of ruffle to the sides here of the petals. This could use a little bit darker color. Just a hint more color down in here. already. Not sure what's going on here, but maybe I need to just completely change this one. I'm just not happy with it, so I'm going to try something really different. If it doesn't work out, I can always come back. This is real heavy up there, so I could maybe just a hint of a little bit of a flower here. Not much. That's about all I need. A little bit of dark color in there too. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, I think I will leave that and just take a small brush and add a little dab of white and maybe a touch of yellow. I have a very pretty yellow here that is cadmium yellow, medium hue. A little bit of white, a little bit of yellow, and I'll bring that into a little bit into my leaves. Might be a little bit too white there. Kind of fuzz it out. I think what I need on this one is I think that peony right there needs to come down a little bit. And I'm trying to paint this in a way that the camera can see what I'm doing, but that I can also see what I'm doing. Okay, and I think that I like those. I think that will work just fine for the table. Now I will let this thoroughly dry, and when that's all dry, I will go back and add varnish. And I think that'll really kind of just set it off.